Hey guys. Oh, whoo, I got one for y'all. All right. So I had the director of the trauma treatment project. Like he talked about trauma. He talked about when he was in a cult. He talked about how we are, divine and how we don't know how to access the right side of our brain so that we can really access more of the divine in our life and all of that. I mean, this was really a great conversation and it made my brain tilt a little bit. And I love conversations like this where we can talk about meaning and growth and holistic psychotherapy and what that means and being trauma informed and how do you step up in learning that you are not your trauma, that you are better than your trauma, that you are an amazing human being and that you can do amazing things. This is the episode for you. You have to watch it. Let's go. What's up, y'all? This is Neena Perez, and this is Straight Talk, no sugar added. And we like to really dive deep into transformational conversations here. Really, conversations that matter in life, just matter in your well being. And today I am joined by Jonathan Labman. He is a licensed professional counselor and trauma expert with nearly 50 years of experience in human development. And as a director of the Trauma Treatment Project at Penn Foundation, Jonathan has been at the forefront of making trauma-informed care the gold standard, influencing policies, training clinicians, and providing direct support for those with a history of trauma. So that's all of y'all, okay? So just pay attention, okay? So beyond his work in clinical settings, Jonathan's journey spans, with private practice, holistic psychotherapy, and the commitment to empowering people from all walks of life to find healing and meaning. And so I love this, Jonathan. I'm glad you're here. Is it okay if I call you John or is Jonathan better?
John is fine.
Okay. John, welcome to the show. How are you?
Nina, thank you for having me. And I'd like all your subscribers or your listeners to subscribe and like and give you 5-star ratings because you're doing this from the goodness of your heart. And we all appreciate that. And
Thank you
I'm,
so
I'm
much.
very well, and I'm really happy to be with you and glad we even had a pre-interview because that means I know you a little bit, which is fun.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that. That's one of the things I find special too, John. I think it's good for when you meet someone so you can align where the vision is going to go for that episode, you know?
Yeah.
And not everybody makes it onto the show because if we don't align, you're not coming, you know?
Okay.
Oh my gosh. So Jonathan, I would love my people to get to know you a bit better though. So
Mhm.
who are you? I know I gave a bio of you, but who are you? Who are you?
So I would describe every human being as a unique manifestation of the divine that isn't really very well encapsulated with a series of words because words are like trying to put the ocean in a glass of water.
Yeah.
But if
Wow.
you know a little history about me, I'm actually a trauma and abuse survivor of sexual abuse as a child and bullying at school. And I lived in a brainwashing cult for 7 years when I was in my 20s, where we
Wow.
practiced strict celibacy and kept the Sabbath and gave a tenth of our pre-income to the church, and I somehow managed to get out of there and start asking questions instead of just
Mm.
hearing answers. And my questions have led me to into healing other people as a massage therapist, as an energy healer, as a psychotherapist, and now as a liberation guide or coach.
There's a lot there, John. There's a lot there. We
I'm
could
an
dig
old
into
guy,
a
Nina.
lot. Right. We can dig into a lot of avenues over here. Okay. Because I'm I was sexually molested too as a child, right? So I understand that trauma, right? And
Mhm.
I was thinking as you're talking about the cult you said you were in, right?
Yeah.
how I would have probably have fallen for that or actually have liked that as well.
Hmm.
Especially the piece of the celibacy and you just feel like you're at a higher power when you do that. And also you already there's trauma. There's trauma when it comes to sexuality and sex and all that kind of stuff,
Oh
right?
yeah. Hmm.
So I could totally see that. I could 100% see that. I think I too would have fallen for that. So
Well,
what got you there?
well, it looks like a safe place, and my
Mhm.
mother was divorcing her second husband. I had no place to go. I was in
Mhm.
college. I was in a denominational Christian college called Covenant College down south in Georgia. And people from my college said, "Hey, you spent last summer alone. Why don't you come and spend this summer with us in our community?" I was like, "Yippee, a ready-made family and
Mhm.
safety and protection and company." And when I got there, though, really the woman, it wasn't supposed to be run by a woman because that denomination is very strict about elders being men. But this woman
Right.
who ran the place, really, she gave me more attention and love in 2 hours than I'd remember getting in my whole life.
Mm.
So that just made me feel like, oh wow, I'm loved.
Mhm.
But it was the same trap as growing up. You're loved, but there's fear attached all the time.
Yeah.
And so you see the love because that's what you want to see. What you don't realize is you're also getting drawn in because that sort of betrayal bond, the wish to win somebody's favor, and then you're always getting kicked to the curb. That happens when we're traumatized happens in cults all the time. It's the same
Wow.
things going on. You always think you're just about ready to be loved for the way you are. And then they tell you that you've committed some sin or you're wicked. Mind you, you're being a celibate, you're keeping the Sabbath, you're studying the Bible every day, but they're still telling you that you're bad and wrong. And if you don't see it the way they see it, you're going to hell.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like, so
Mhm.
that's all the love that you would have expected at home, and then all the trauma that you got at home.
Mhm.
And it's
Mhm.
it's very enticing, and I know people in all kinds of cults, Christian and guru cults and new age cults, and you could say that almost any religion with a dogma and a doctrine based in words is some sort of a cult because they're telling you to think like they do,
Mhm.
not
Mhm.
not allowing you to ask questions, and they're not telling you you can have your own direct experience of God. You have to have it the way we have it, and you have to talk about it the way we talk about it.
It's so true. And it's so easy for that to happen, John, because, the first church I went to was a very charismatic church. And
Mhm.
I remember, like, if we got sick or financially were in trouble or whatever, they're like, well, what did you do? What door did you open? What sin did you commit? And I'm like, I actually don't know. Like, and then you would constantly be like trying to be the best version of whatever that was, never attaining it, but just trying all the time, right?
Right, whatever they thought. And the other thing
Mhm.
is that's a very simplistic idea of the divine. Is if as the divine is Santa Claus,
Mhm.
you're going to get rewarded if you're good, and you're going to get punished if you're bad. But the God that created the entire multiverse with trillions of planets and billions of galaxies is way more complicated than you're going to get what's easy if you're good, and you're going to get what's hard if you're bad. I mean, that's just inane.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so true. And we've distorted a lot of that, haven't we? And
Yeah.
it's a for me, it's a constant seeking. I'm constantly seeking
Mhm.
um God in my life, right? Because I call him God. I know you call him the divine. I call him God.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't. Because to me, it saved my life.
Yeah.
Right? It
Yeah.
saved my life and it's healed my life and it's, transformed my life in so many ways. Through the good and bad, because that's the other thing, right? Like everybody wants to keep telling you that, God is going to be your cosmic, like my old pastor used to say, your cosmic bellboy. And as soon as you ring a bell, the cosmic bellboy comes to give you what you need. And he's like, God is not your cosmic bellboy. Like you need to stop doing that. And I'm like, you know what? He's absolutely right. And
Yeah.
also, I was also seeking a lot of entertainment or the next high, because
Oh
when you're in
yeah.
that charismatic piece,
Oh
yeah, right? It's like
yeah. I did
it's
some
like
of that.
the
Yeah.
music, the worship, and the everything, and you're
Yeah.
you're there, right? So tell me about that process for you. Like, what was the moment where you're like, "Wait a minute, I'm in a cult," right? Like, that must have been in that f I'll just back up for a second. For me, I was angry about that. I don't
Hmm.
know what you went through, but when I stepped back and realized all of the brainwashing that went on and all the stuff that went on, eh, I was angry, you know? So, I just wanna know what your experience was on that.
Well, I don't think that I ever used those words to myself because we had to confess everything that we thought to these people, and if it didn't
Oh,
agree with them, we were in trouble.
oof.
So it wasn't until somebody tried to burn the church down, and then this woman who ran it blamed the congregants and said, you all must be hiding secret sins.
Oh,
So
boy.
while you're giving us your free labor to rebuild the church that somebody burned down, you better be fessing up your secret sins. If you don't, you're going to be doubly damned to hell if you dare set foot back in this
Oh,
church.
doubly damned.
Doubly
Not
damned.
not just
Not just
not
singly
not
damned to
just
hell.
damned once, but
Right,
damned twice. Oh
right.
my
So I,
god.
I fessed up what I thought was my secret sin, which is that I'm a gay person. And,
Mhm,
I never acted on it, though. So they said, well, that can't be your sin because you never did anything about it. Well, I'm like, huh? So I paced the floors for, I don't know, 4 or 5 months until 3 o'clock in the morning every morning, then went to work the next day, trying to figure out what in the world I was supposed to do because it was the only thing I could think of that I had held back. And
mhm,
I didn't
mhm.
remember my childhood trauma until I was 52, so I wasn't going to fess that up to them.
Right.
So as I realized, we were literally carrying refinished pews back into the church, and I realized I'm not okay with these people. They're not okay with me. They're not gonna let me come back here. And
Mm,
and they said though, well, they gave me the double bind choice. If you're gay and you leave, you're gonna get AIDS and go to hell. If you stay here and come back with us, you're doubly damned to hell. So it's what your audience would know as a double bind. Somebody gives
mm,
you a choice.
mm.
Neither choice is good for you, but it's what they give you.
Ri
And I was like, there was something really quiet in me that said, something wrong with this. And
Mm,
and so I packed up all my stuff, which is just literally a bedroom's worth of stuff, put it in storage while all the other guys were somewhere else, and I fled. And the next day I was in a therapist's office, and the woman said, you're telling me you're suicidal, but you wouldn't be here if you didn't have hope.
right.
And really it was through her and through a lot of process that I decided this place was a cult. To me, it
Mhm,
was just originally one of the denominational churches of the college that I went to.
mhm,
This denomination put together this wonderful school.
mhm.
And so I didn't realize until much later, hey, wait, this has really been a brainwashing cult. It took me a while. I didn't just have that, flash. And
Right.
I was in a lot of other communities in my life where I never lived in a community again, but where I just felt like, this is like too much. There's something wrong about this. Yeah, I'm loved, but I'm only loved if I do what they say.
Right.
Whatever
It's
the path
conditional.
was.
A lot of conditions.
Right. And so,
Mm,
and the other thing eventually, after many, many years, is I learned that we don't have to go looking for God. God's right here.
mm,
There's no seeking necessary in the sense that you think there's something out there that's going to make you finally be okay. It's not the truth. There's something already here. The divine already lives in us. We are connected to that, to God or the divine or the universe through our right brain. That's the faculty in us that connects us directly to the divine all the time. And nobody teaches us that because they want us to be their followers. They want a little narcissistic jolt.
mhm, mhm.
And, I don't, I really wanted to be that kind of teacher in the beginning. And then as time has gone on and I haven't been that teacher, I realized, no, I'm really conflicted about that. I don't want to be anybody's savior. They don't need me. The
Right.
only reason they need me is to figure out how to master their humanity, how to deal with their emotions and their thoughts. So a lot of thoughts are false and a lot of emotions are generated by false thoughts.
Mhm.
And then I teach them how to access the right brain. So the left brain is all that thought and that emotion based on thought, and the right brain is all the goodies that we want as enlightened or God joined people, people in union with the divine. Already there in the right brain is a great book called A Stroke of Insight by Jill Bolte Taylor. She was a neuroanatomist, PhD at Harvard. She had a stroke at 38 years old.
Mm.
She was instantly in oneness with God, in peace, in bliss, in ecstasy, but she forgot her name and she couldn't interact in the three-dimensional world. She had no emotional memory. She didn't know how to protect herself. So she's written that
Wow.
book and another book called, let's see, Whole Brain Living, that I'm reading now, which is like, okay, you're always going to have this left brain that's going to be chattering obscenities at you and
Mhm.
falsehoods at you in your head. And you have to learn how to live more from the right brain or more from your divinity that's already there and is wordless. The silent stillness in us is God.
Mm.
And everybody wants to say, no, it's words. If you use the silent stillness, the devil's going to come take over. No,
No.
God is in the silent stillness. The still small voice
Mhm,
is
mhm.
also
He
you.
talks about that actually, and
That's
he
right.
talks about being still and knowing he is God too. Like he talks a lot about that, and
Right.
so that's I love that you chewed the meat and spit out the bones. I love that.
And
It
it
you
only
know?
stopped. It only stopped in April of 24.
Mm,
I was on the last. Somebody was going to move me to a place called the unself or the no self, which is in the Eastern traditions allegedly the goal. But it turns out that's just more words.
no,
It's just
right,
more words, and it's
right.
more of somebody else's hoops to jump through that you got to pay to judge whether you're reactive or non-reactive now.
Oh boy,
And that's the
that
standard in
seems
sort of
tough. That's just tough.
enlightened Buddhism, right? And so, since then, I just thought, well, I can't be that kind of teacher. I have to call myself a guide. And yeah, I call
Mm,
my students, I don't know what to call them, people, clients. I don't even really know how to define in words what liberation or enlightenment is. It's
right,
a
right.
wordless condition. It's like this. I mean, it's the mystery and the aliveness that we are, and that's all around us and in us, and
Mm,
allegedly outside. And at a certain point, when you're living kind of more in that right brain, there's no division, there's no separation, there's an intimacy of the 10,000 things, or with the 10,000 things, as if there's no difference between me and this in the right brain. The
right,
left
right, right.
left brain calls this a Yeti cup, you know, stainless steel. Okay, and it's got water in it, and the right brain is like, I'm just in this mysterious oneness, kind of in awe of everything
Mm,
arising. I can walk out my door and disappear into the sky. And people have had these experiences. They don't realize they're a taste of enlightenment or liberation or their right brain being online. They don't know that.
right. Wow. I mean, wow. My brain is like tilt, right? So and I know you also when I was introducing you, I was talking about the holistic psychotherapy, right?
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
you've incorporated this holistic approach to your work. And
Yes.
so explain that. I like how does that differ from like regular psychotherapy or the traditional psychotherapy and
Well,
its
so
benefits to all these people who are listening, right? Who are trauma survivors.
yeah, so holistic psychotherapy, or what you would call liberation therapy, as I've termed it
Liberation
recently,
therapy.
is that you recognize you're going to have to deal with your hurt
Mm,
personhood, your hurt child, your hurt emotion that's stored in the left brain in the amygdala and the hippocampus, which are the organs in the brain that are affected by trauma. They're
mhm,
physiologically changed by trauma. There's a nerve ganglion in a group of nerves in the neck, right on these places here that I'm showing with my fists,
mhm, mhm.
that actually produce more adrenaline in survivors of especially childhood trauma, and also any PTSD survivor. They're suddenly producing more adrenaline. That's a permanent change. And so I want people to know That's not hooey made up in their head. That's real physiological bodily stuff. We have to work with that. We have to learn how to deal with our what they call in AA the stinking thinking.
Mhm.
We have to learn how to work with our false thoughts, because most of what shows up in our head, especially as a trauma survivor, is, oh my God, it's going to be a catastrophe.
Right, right, right. Yeah, yeah.
Right. So
Mhm.
so I want people to know that they how to do all that, because without that kind of quieting down, they can't access their divinity, their calm, their right brain, the love, bliss, freedom, peace, and truthfulness that is the right brain's connection to the divine. So and the other thing is, if you're just dealing with ego in the land of traditional psychotherapy, you never realize that ego itself isn't real. It's just words.
Mm.
And also, but in traditional spirituality, if you just try to live in the right brain and your connection to the divine and that kind of wordless awe, you can't function in the real world. They don't teach you how to deal with your humanity, your psychology. So I feel like,
Wow.
and I've heard some teachers, I'll mention a spiritual teacher I know of named Rupert Spira, very, very well known in the non dual spiritual community, Eastern mysticism.
Mhm.
Well, I watched him with students. He was giving almost all psychological advice during the session that he ran. And I'm like, oh, right, because we need both. And so what I've been trying to do is put both together for a long time, actually, since I started my practice in 2000. And after my own initial spiritual awakening, which I kind of date at 2001, I really tried to teach the right brain spiritual skills always and add them to the left. But there's a kind of a ratcheting up effect. People are coming in with all the trauma and the emotional
Yeah.
distress and the cacophony of thought. So I help to kind of let them know how to calm that down. I've written a book called Being Human and Waking Up. That's my
Wow.
latest book, and it has all of this summarized in it. And because you're so generous, I'm going to give anybody who wants a free copy of that book, a PDF. At the end
Wow.
of our session, they just have to stay and I'll tell them how to get that.
Wow, that's powerful. And I want you because, as you're talking, I'm like, okay, but how do we start? Right, John? Like, so
Yeah.
give us, like, all of us who are, trauma survivors, and we do well, but then we pull back, right? Like something pulls us back, and then we do well, and then they pull us back. So give
Hmm.
us like one strategy or something we can implement where we can start this journey, while and then because then I want to talk to you about what that looks like working with you and all that.
Uh-huh,
So
sure.
I would so let us know about how do we start
So,
healing some of this left side trauma
yeah. So,
cacophony of stuff we got going on.
right. Very simply, if our listeners just stop and close their eyes and take 3 deep breaths through the nose, inhaling and exhaling through the nose, and listen to my voice and whatever else they hear coming through their ears, and feel their bottom on the chair, they will get a taste of the right brain right away.
Mm,
Their anxiety levels will fall 1 to 5% in just a minute.
mhm, mhm,
And the other major thing I can say to listeners right now is 90, and psychologists say this too, this is not just spiritual hooey, right? 90 to 99% of the thoughts generating in your left brain are not true. In other words, folks, they're lies
mhm,
in one form or another. And that's pretty strong language, but especially when you've lived through trauma, you're catastrophizing what other people are going to think about you. You're
mhm,
catastrophizing what you think about yourself. You're catastrophizing, especially the future. So
mhm.
if your listeners just challenge the thoughts about the future, that's a great way to begin to kind of just get the thoughts to where you don't believe them all, and they're not generating all this false negative emotion, because false thought generates false emotion.
Yeah,
And if it feels real, I mean, it's
yeah.
real adrenaline, right? And it's real sadness. But if that real emotion is coming from a false source, that emotion is useless. So that's
Wow.
really how I start with people. Challenge your thoughts. Is that thought really true? Or, hey, I was in a good mood when I was eating lunch, and after lunch, I was in a lousy mood. Nothing happened. What happened inside here?
Yeah.
Oh, some kind of stinking thing was happening. I've decided that maybe my partner spent all of our grocery money on booze.
Mm-mm.
I've just made that up because
Yeah,
maybe it
yeah.
happened once 20 years ago.
Right.
And now suddenly I'm like,
So true.
right.
So true, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, how as you're saying that, I also in my brain goes to linking it to unforgiveness, to shame,
Hmm.
like all of those things, right? Because somebody did something, just using your example 20 years ago,
Hmm.
and your brain wants to lie to you about, oh, it's still happening today when it isn't.
Right.
It, do you think that has to do with that as well? Like that unforgiveness piece, or having shame in your life or anything like that?
Well, I think shame and forgiveness are separate questions, but I would say that for trauma survivors, there's a sense that it was my fault that that was
Mhm.
happening to me.
Mhm.
Because, again, that simple message, God punishes the wicked. So if I'm getting hurt like that by somebody who's supposed to love me, if my own
Mhm.
family member is sexually assaulting me, I must be a really bad person. So I take on a guilt, and then I feel like if anybody finds out about that, since I feel guilty about it, they're going to humiliate me and shame me for that.
Yeah.
So I work with that. So I divide the thoughts into three rings, like a three-ring circus.
Okay.
So I put my thoughts about myself in the first ring, my thoughts about what others are saying, thinking, and doing in general, but about me in the second ring, and my thoughts about the future in the third. And when we're talking about guilt and shame, we're talking about the first ring. My thoughts about myself started to be negative when I started getting abused, even if in your case, well, I don't know your case. In my case, I was 3,
Mhm.
thereabouts.
Yeah,
So,
I was 6. Mhm.
right. So, these tiny little kids, right? And
Mhm.
they feel responsible. Must be doing
Yeah.
something wrong if this person is doing this to me. And
Right.
so that makes us hyper vigilant, which is one of the hallmarks of PTSD as a diagnostic tool, hypervigilance. I'm always looking for, and that hypervigilance means that we don't forgive, even if a person's just done something to us once, we don't forgive. Now, I would say to people, if they keep doing that stuff to you, you better not forgive or forget because you're just going to be living in fear of them all the time. They're an abuser. Stay away from them until they change.
Mhm. Mhm.
But forgiveness, if you realize, hey, wait, that happened. Okay, that happened, for me almost 67 years ago when that started. The person who did that to me is dead. And I was able to forgive that person before they died because I realized the pain I had felt through the pain was gone. It's the other thing. When you
Yeah.
feel the pain that happened to you from the trauma, even though it's horrible to feel, all that weight comes off of your system and
Yep.
a lot of that anger goes away and you can then forgive, but really you can't forgive easily except as a verbal exercise
Mhm.
until the feeling changes in your body.
Yeah, I think that's very true. I
Hmm.
actually forgave my perpetrators, or my stepfather, who I
Hmm.
thought was like my father. But yeah, and that was and I made a decision, John. Like, I actually, in my head, I said, I'm going to choose right now to forgive, because
Hmm.
I can't keep having this control over my life where I'm making poor decisions based on something that happened to me. You
That's right.
know,
That's right.
so. What is it that you're doing with your students right now? Like, how does that look like if somebody's listening right now and is like, John definitely is speaking my language. What does that look like to work with you? What do you, I know you said one step is, what we were just discussing, but I'm just
Mhm.
curious as to what you do.
Well, typically I would start out just getting to know a person. I mean, I do one-on-one hour-long sessions. That's my format.
Mhm.
And if I ever have enough people to run a group, I do run groups on Zoom. But typically I like the one-on-one, and that actually is the traditional spiritual process. The teacher always worked one-on-one with the student. It was not
Yeah.
really ever in groups. And so I get to know people. I get to know where they're hurting, what's really bugging them first, what's kind of in the way, what's always coming back up and bothering them. right?
Mhm,
Those are the
mhm.
first most distressing things. We always deal with that first. Very quickly, though, within a few sessions, I'm teaching meditation and mindfulness. And mindfulness and meditation also include things like running and listening to the breeze as you run, fishing, I mean, hunting for those who don't mind hunting, playing golf, sewing, cooking food. All of that is right brain activity, right?
Mm.
So I introduce meditation in a very non traditional way
Yeah,
because
I like it.
I can also teach it traditionally. I mean, I'm a trained yoga teacher and I taught meditation for 24 years. But so I do those things. But very first thing is let's talk about and work on the things that distress you the most. The things that distress you the most are keeping you distracted from what's already true about you, which is you're already connected to God, or the Hindus would say, you are God incarnate.
Okay.
This individual
Okay.
consciousness called Neena or John, the Hindus say, is God itself,
Okay.
which is like it's beyond. It goes beyond what the Christians and the Western religions would say. They would call that
Mhm,
blasphemy. But in the East,
mhm.
everything arising is the same thing.
Okay.
E.g.,
Yeah,
it's God.
right, right, right. So, but you've worked with so many different individuals, right? Across all these diverse backgrounds and
Yeah,
traumas, right? And thought processes and all that stuff. What's like a common thread that you have observed in people?
that's really
When
easy.
they're okay, what is that?
In the Western culture, the common thread coming from all of our Western religions is I'm bad just because I'm here. I'm not
Mm,
enough. I'm guilty. I'm wrong. I'm wicked. I'm sinful. I'm evil just because I was born.
mhm, mhm.
And so, at the heart of all of our ego problems is that sort of black hole that pulls us in all the time. That belief that because I was taught that I was bad and because bad things happen to me, I must really be bad. And there isn't enough good I can possibly do to ever be good enough. So I'm always hurling ahead, trying to do more and more and more and more and more, right? Which makes everybody
Right.
frantic and crazy, right? So
Mhm.
that's the most common thing. And then the second thing is that we all think God is out here.
Okay.
Can't be here because I'm bad.
Oh, I
And so,
see.
right, so
Mhm.
that's really
Yeah.
common across everybody. And then beyond that,
Yeah.
everybody is a unique manifestation of God, like every kaleidoscope has a different set of color crystals in it.
Mhm.
And then every person you interact with brings a different shape and structure to those color crystals, but they're only unique to you. There will never be another Nina in this entire multiverse.
Right.
So
Right.
you don't need to be special. You're already special. That's the other thing. People think, oh my God, I'm not special.
Right. Listen, I think my husband can only do with one Nina, you know what I mean? So, God knows what he's doing when he only created one. So, I absolutely could talk to you forever.
Oh, thank
So,
you.
you're an amazing human. I love, your angle, your aspect, your point of view. I love what you're doing with people and you're helping them through their traumas, and we need that. We need that in the
Hmm.
world because there's a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
And, especially I think now that we are exposed to a lot of it too, right? So now
Yeah.
not only are we going through our own traumas, we're watching other people's trauma, which also kind of traumatizes us,
Yeah.
and in fear and all these other things that start popping up because of social media and all the stuff that we're watching. So I know that it'd be very meaningful for somebody who's listening who really would like to connect with you, John. And so let us know how people can do that, how they can starting that conversation with you to talk
Sure.
to you about what you do. Yeah.
So just write to me, use the word support at simplyawake.com. Simply Awake is all one word. Support at simplyawake.com. In the subject line, just put something like human or human being. That's all you need. I will send you my free book, a PDF of Being Human and Waking Up, and I'll send you a link for a 15-minute free initial consult, no obligation to continue, if you would like that. And everybody's always afraid to take the 15-minute consult.
I
Like
know. I don't know why people get afraid of that.
they're
It's
afraid
like,
they owe you something.
yeah, yeah, exactly. No, I'm the same way. Like I feel like if I can give you some enlightenment, something that helps you to move to the second step of anywhere, it doesn't have to be me.
Right.
Then take it. Like
Right.
take it. you
Yeah.
know? But
Right. So,
maybe it's the trauma, John.
well, it could be. I mean, if you
Yeah.
feel like you're bad, then you don't deserve to feel better.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
that's a lie.
Yeah.
You're not bad and you do deserve to feel better. We all
Yeah.
have the capacity for all kinds of goodness and all kinds of badness. We just have to figure out how to tap into a neutral view of ourselves so we can get to all the goodness that's in there.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here and
It's a
sharing all
pleasure.
this wisdom. So much fun.
So
Thank
much
you.
fun. You're
So
very,
much
very
fun.
fun.
Wait, what's your website though? Because that's where, what's your website?
Yeah,
Simply, okay,
simplyawake.com. It's all
okay,
one word, very easy, simply awake.
okay. And because I know you gave us the email, right? So they
Yeah,
can support at simplyawake.com.
yes,
And that's where they can put a subject line of human and grab the free PDF book for this.
right,
And
and the
then they
free
can
offer of a
A
consult as
fifth,
well.
right. Take it, y'all. Stop acting out. Take it. All right. Thank you, John, for being here.
You're
And thank
welcome,
you
Nina.
guys so much for hanging out with me and John. I told you, right? I love conversations that are transformative, that make you think differently, that make you also aware that you are not alone in your journey. There are people that really want to help you move along and move forward, right? And I mean, he's a licensed professional counselor and trauma expert. Like when somebody's an expert in what they do, take advantage. Like somebody's offering you to call them for 15 minutes to talk to you about what's going on. And also the fact that he just gave you the gift of a book, which that means you can actually sit there and read through this and start getting enlightenment in yourself about maybe I'm dealing with some things that I don't have to be dealing with. Right, guys? So stop being stubborn. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, all that great stuff. Share this with somebody who you think would need this and get in contact with John already. All right, guys. Love you so much. Neena Perez, straight talk, no sugar added. Until next time.